I look at the level of corruption and how it's so many things are so blatantly against our current laws. And of course, that my biggest one that I keep railing against, even as new ones keep coming up, new events keep occurring, is the lack of due process and imprisoning people with that lack of due process. It's one thing to send somebody back to their country of origin. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But to send them to some other country to imprison them without due process is so blatantly illegal in our country that I'm astonished that they're still there. Welcome to another episode of the Bloomburg Democrat. I'm Sally Taylor. This is my discerning younger brother, John Daniels. We're here to visit politics again today. And the question that I want to dip our toes into is, why is it that when we're seeing so much corruption, particularly in the American government, but maybe we'll talk about it in other governments as well, when we're seeing so much blatant corruption, why is nothing being done about it? Why is it overall largely being ignored? Is it a problem of the system, or is there other things at play? So, John, you said you thought you maybe had an idea about this.
Oh, well, I mean, I have a hypothesis, I guess you could say.
Okay, because I'll be honest, I'm so confused by it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on how we're seeing so much occur? And let me go on ahead and bring up an example real quick before you do go there. Just this week, the nation of Qatar has gifted Donald Trump a $400 million airplane to serve as Air Force One. And it's not being gifted to the government. It's being
That was my
gifted
question.
to Trump, because this plane, once Trump goes out of office, will then be transferred to the Trump Library organization. So it will continue to be in his use, and I assume the use of his family.
Yeah.
And even after his death, I assume that will continue to be the case.
Probably.
Yeah.
If they can afford to keep it up.
Keep it up. Yeah.
There's maintenance.
Well, with as
fuel
much
costs.
money as they're raking in really very sketchy ways because of his presidency.
Well, he's really bad at holding on to money, though. I don't think it's gonna last.
Well, but then he can, at the very least, it's something he can sell for at least $400 million, at least at this stage, right?
Yeah, or some
amount
once they fly it off of the tarmac, it loses like 20% of its value, right? Well, yes, so I've been out of the loop, so I didn't know about this stuff. But I mean, it's not so very different from his little meme coin night that he had, his gala or whatever.
Right, exactly. And that's another blatant one where he is saying, the top people who purchase into his coin would receive dinner with him. And of course, it's big corporations then that have taken that opportunity and run with it, right? To have access, which is clearly unconstitutional and illegal, along with the along with the breaking of the emoluments clause, which is also a bribe to give him this giant airplane.
Yeah.
Why is nobody doing anything to stop this?
Well, so I've thought this many times now, and well, whose job is it to stop this, right? I mean, it's not the judicial branch's job. They can't even prosecute somebody on their own. They need the executive branch to raise a suit or criminal charges or whatever. And so the judicial can't do anything. Executive, of course, is not going to prosecute themselves ordinarily.
Right.
And so it's Congress whose job it is to make sure this happens. But Congress is all MAGA at this point. They're all on
Yeah.
his side. What he's doing, they justify it in their little twisted view of the world, or they just ignore it and hope that they're the next ones to get the same thing, you know? I mean, it's who was the guy who a long time said it, long ago said that Americans always feel like they're temporarily embarrassed or something, right? When they're like they're not rich, but they think that they're going to become rich. They're going to be just like everybody else, right? They're all just like
Uh,
temporarily embarrassed millionaires, right?
oh, gotcha.
This,
Okay. Yes. Yes.
yeah,
That sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah. I don't
yes.
know who said it.
There's some quote. I can't remember who said it either. I even have a tenuous grasp on it, what exactly he said. But anyways, so maybe this is kind of like the mindset is that these people are thinking, well, they're going to eventually get up into the upper echelons of Trumpism, and then they're going to be the next ones to reap the spoils. And so
Right.
they're either just blindly devoted to him or looking out for themselves or hoping to become the next. And so that's why I think they're not doing anything. They're not there to uphold the Constitution. They're there to uphold themselves. And
But
so
they
this is
all
why. Like
did.
the Democrats don't have the number of people, the number of votes to do any effective change, right?
Yeah.
And so this is why.
Yeah. They
They're
all did
complicit.
swear an oath to uphold the
Yes.
Constitution.
Yes, of
And
course.
yet
A lot of
those
these
oaths
people
seem to
lie on a
be.
daily basis.
Yes.
Like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that's their upper modus operandi, right? Like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do today? I'm going to lie until I get something out of it.
Yeah.
And
I think that I recognize my own naivety in this. I truly do, because I know that they lie. I'm fully aware of that. There's no question about it. Um, but because it's not
oh,
second nature
also,
to me to lie,
yes,
it's
but they're
very
also
confusing.
shameless. They're also
Well,
shameless.
oh, that's actually a really important aspect, I do believe.
Yeah,
I,
I think so too.
the shamelessness.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I don't understand that because I experience guilt and shame on a regular
Well, yes.
basis.
So these shamelessness is just a nice way of saying sociopath, right?
Yes, yes.
So these people just they're very self-serving. They have no interest in anyone else.
So, is a layer of sociopathy, do you think, kind of a prerequisite for being able to uh, survive in politics?
No, I don't think so, because look at Bernie Sanders. Um,
Right.
right, and AOC, she's
Yeah.
doing a great job. So no, it's not. But usually, people who aren't sociopaths think that they might want to do something a bit more useful with their lives. And people who are not sorry, who are sociopaths, they're thinking, what's the quickest and easiest way for me to get to the top? And so convincing a bunch of people that you're something other than you're not is an easy way to kind of, get
Yeah.
ahead in politics.
Yeah. Well, and it's certainly very much the way Trump got there is
Yeah,
claimed one thing and then has very actively done another altogether.
yeah.
I really I had hoped, and I've even had this discussion with MAGA friends who have said, well, our checks and balances will fix that.
Hmm.
It's not happening.
No,
It's just not happening.
we got half a check
Uh,
and no balance.
right, right. And even some long-term Republicans that I thought might still have a shred of dignity, or maybe
Yeah,
would or just disliked Donald Trump enough that they might speak up here and there occasionally. They're
yeah,
all dead silent.
yeah,
And I mean, a lot of them are old men. You would think they'd be
yeah,
perfectly able and comfortable to retire just to
yeah.
save a shred of dignity,
And
but
so
it's just not happening.
this is I think the tendency for people, maybe perhaps men in particular. I'm not sure how women view this, but the desire to be remembered. And when you think that things are kind of going in your favor, you think that maybe you're going to have a positive image after you're gone. right? And so these people may be thinking, oh, I'm old, I want people to remember me, and I don't want them to remember me for being the guy who, was a traitor or something like that. So I
And
mean,
see, that's why I would think they would stand up against these things. They would
yeah,
say,
but
this
see,
is the clear way our
but
laws are
you're
written.
thinking that they respect the opinions of people who are of the opinion opposite of their own, right?
Yeah.
And so, of course,
Yeah.
they're not. They respect the opinions of the people who believe the same thing that they believe. So, being seen as a hero in the eyes of dirty liberals is nothing to a conservative, right? They want to be heroes in the eyes of conservatives, and maybe a few of them actually believe in God, and there's that thing twisted up in there. But I doubt very few of them actually believe in Christianity.
I was watching a thing just today where somebody, I think it's in Oklahoma, is running for office, and he's running on the complete abortion ban to the point of convicting women who have abortions, even out of state, of murder, and the death
Mhm.
penalty being the punishment
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
offense. That's not pro-life.
yeah. No, it's not. It's definitely not pro-life. That's
No,
pro-punishment for anybody
of
who
women.
thinks
Yeah,
differently from myself. Yeah.
right, right. So I look at the level of corruption and how it's so many things are so blatantly against our current laws. And of course, that my biggest one that I keep railing against, even as new ones keep coming up, new
Hmm.
events keep occurring, is the lack of due process and imprisoning people with that lack of due process. It's
Yeah.
one thing to send somebody back to their country of origin. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But to send them to some other country to imprison them without due process
Yeah.
is so blatantly illegal in our
Yeah.
country
Yeah.
that I'm astonished that they're still there.
Yeah, and so
We,
what I'm afraid is probably going to happen is he'll get away with all of this because Congress won't do anything about it because the people who would do something about it don't have the votes. And what's going to happen in the future is that the next person's going to come along and they're going to say, "Oh, well, we're not going to prosecute him for his crimes. He's out of office now and it'll be fine." This is what they've done in the past, right?
right. They've already not punished him for his crimes, his
Yeah.
convictions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he uses it as a badge of honor. You
Yeah.
know, he likes being called the felon.
Yeah. That's
It's a
weird.
badge of honor.
It's a really weird badge of honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for either
I don't
one,
think I
working against this
do.
situation, or
Okay, so
two,
yeah.
surviving it?
So the thing that really needs to happen, and this is the thing that never really happens because people don't have faith in the system, they don't have faith in themselves and other things, but we need people to run for office who are honest people. People who think, okay, well, maybe I'm going to hate the rest of my life, but I'm going to dedicate myself to making the world a better place. And I would do it if I actually thought I could get elected. I've probably said
Yeah.
too many rotten things in the past that nobody's going to want to ever vote for me. But
I'm not electable either, John.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So
and I don't have the temperament for it either.
no, I definitely do
But
not either.
I'm more than happy to support people who are honest, who do have the temperament and the
Yes,
desire
yes,
to serve
I
in
am
that
too.
way.
And you don't have to be a Democrat. You don't have to be a Republican. I'll vote for
No.
anybody who it seems like they're better than everybody else, right?
Right.
If you represent me, I will vote for you. And but if you
Right.
don't, then I won't. Like I
Right.
don't feel like I have to vote for the second best or the lesser of two evils. I don't believe in that at all. Like
Yeah.
we need to sometimes have the hard times so that we can remember the good times.
Right. Right. And I have always been the same, John. I have voted independent throughout my life. I've voted for Republicans. I've voted for Democrats. I voted for independents. And more often than not, I've always been on the losing end. Not always, but
Yeah.
often. Um,
Well, that's
and
just
so,
because you're outnumbered. There's a whole lot more
right.
people who don't think about this stuff at all, who are also voting. So
Right. Yeah. Well,
sometimes we're in the minority.
we are. Well, but even, and I don't know if this is generational or not. I do know that more young people are getting involved, but even my own children who I always taught, be aware, vote your conscience. You don't have to vote who I vote for, but vote your conscience. For the longest time, neither of my daughters voted. I think one of them does now. But the other one still doesn't. And I've talked to her just recently. She largely doesn't even know what's going on in the nation. Like
Yeah.
she has no awareness that she's living her life, going to work every day, coming home,
Yeah.
taking care of her children, you know,
Yeah.
relaxing on the
Well,
weekends,
that's what I
and
was doing
she's
for the
just
last
not
week.
watching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and that's
When I'm
important.
with my
It
kid, I
is
check out.
important to live your life,
Yeah.
but we ignore the big things that are occurring in government at our own detriment,
Yes, this is true.
because it can all be easily taken away by
Yeah.
those who are more nefarious in their intentions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I mean, sometimes your head goes underwater, but every now and then you gotta peek out and
peak up,
take a breath.
right?
Yeah.
And I definitely do believe, I mean, this situation is very stressful for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Republicans included, or I would say MAGA included. I mean, like,
Mm.
because again, I don't consider the current Republican Party Republican anymore. I consider it MAGA.
Yes.
It is stressful. The division in our nation is stressful on all of us.
Yeah.
But we've just got to return to our founding ideals that say, we're here to take care of each other,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. This is
And
governments, even corporations are kind of supposed to do it, right? They're supposed to be
right,
a collective thing for the betterment of everyone involved.
right. But over a long period of time, that has been dissolving.
Oh, yes.
And unless we can find our way back there, and that I think maybe has to happen at a more local level.
Yeah.
We've got to get to know our neighbors again. We can't just hide in our homes and play on our devices
Yeah.
and not be in the world a little bit. It is important to take your mental health days, right? That's
Yes. Yes.
important,
Yeah.
extremely important,
Yeah.
but not to the point that you become avoidant
Right.
so that the world crumbles around you and you did nothing to try to
Yeah.
make it better.
Yeah.
That's my current perspective, is
Yeah.
that we none of us has to carry the whole thing, but if we
That's
all
right.
carry a little,
Yeah.
then
So
then we
do
will all
anything
be
that makes
okay.
the world a better place, right? It doesn't have to
Right.
be anything big. Just anything
It
that makes
does.
the world a little bit better. Just do
Yeah,
that. And then it
exactly.
will become better.
Exactly. And I think we've become quite selfish and quite internalized as a culture in the
Yeah.
last, especially the last 20 years,
Yeah.
especially the last 20 years. And
Yeah.
it may take a really big thing like this disconnect, like this division that we're currently experiencing, for people to
Yeah.
go, wait a minute, what happened? My biggest concern, and that's going to require the older generation who remembers it being different, right? Or
Yeah.
as far as being more connected. I'm not talking about going back to old ways. I think we've always got
Right.
to move forward. We've always
Right.
got to make progress.
Right.
But remembering what it's like to spend time with your neighbors and to go
Yeah.
visit each other and to
Yeah.
help
Those of
each
us
other
who
out.
actually did this, we should say, hey, remember how we used to like do this? That was fun. Let's do that again. Right?
Right.
We
Right.
used to go
Because I
over
think the
and sit on
young,
the porch and
yeah.
have a drink
eh,
and Kool-Aid or whatever.
Exactly. And I don't mean to be generationalist in these statements, but younger people haven't really experienced that as much. They
Yeah.
they grew up in a culture that is more isolated and internalized, and we have a
Yeah.
true loneliness epidemic right now. I mean, we talked about this last time.
This is partially just urbanization, right? As people move out of the countryside and into the cities, then like this just tends to happen. I look at city kids and how they've never really been out into the forest. They don't know what animals are like and,
Yeah.
this kind of a thing. And so it's it's definitely I think part of it is the way that our society is developing location wise, like just this concentration towards the cities is it warps your understanding of what it is to be alive on a living
Yeah.
planet that
Right.
we require nature, right?
Right.
Like it's not an
Right.
option.
Right. Well, of
It's not
course,
we
you and I
can
grew up in we grew up
yeah
in the country, so that's
yeah
pretty second nature to the two of us. But there are a lot of people that grew up in a city and never left a city, and
right
and I guess that's being from the country. That's one of the things that again it confuses me. I admit
yeah
confusion. That
yeah
you can grow up around so many people
yeah.
and not actually interact with each other.
I understand. Yeah, this is something that's definitely big in Japan. I think because as we become closer and kind of enclosed around by people everywhere, everywhere you go, there's people and a lot of people. And so you tend to really value that private alone time because as soon as you step out of your door, then there's people everywhere. And so that's just part of urbanization, I believe. You know,
Yeah.
it's you kind of withdraw so that you have that quiet time that you normally might just have every day all the time because you live outdoors, you know, you live outside more than you live inside. Um, but when you live mostly inside offices, inside your small apartment, inside buses, inside of subways, inside of everything, then you kind of want to have that alone time and withdraw. And that's I think
Yeah.
that's
Well, I mean, I'm
what
an
happens.
introvert by nature. I like to
Oh, I
withdraw. I
am
mean,
too.
I that's
Yes.
how I rejuvenate, right? But
Right,
that alone
right.
time can be in nature. It's even better.
Yes, it's much better. I agree.
So, yeah, I know we've gone off a little bit on a tangent, but it is trying to understand how the conditions we're in have led to this acceptance of things we never would have accepted before.
Right,
And how
right.
much of it is just cycles that once one generation forgets, uh,
Yeah,
we'll just use, the nature of fascism in this case. Once a generation forgets what fascism was like and how horrible it was,
yeah,
then they're more willing to slide into that again.
right. Comfort, once you reach a certain level of comfort, then it's you t start to take it for granted and then you start wondering, well, is there more than just being comfortable, right? You want to you
Yeah.
want to get you want to get more. Just like any other type of stimulant, I would say.
Oh, sure. Oh, I mean, we do so much because we're after a level of comfort or
Yeah,
at least not pain, right?
right.
I wonder if the the extreme amounts of information that
Mhm.
are being thrown at us these days are also partly responsible for this tendency to fall back into old patterns because
Mm.
we're just overloaded by information. I mean, and this podcast is one
Yes,
more, example of that, of people
yes,
talking and putting it out into the world.
yeah,
But it means that we've spent less time looking at things like history in a lot of cases. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so if we're not aware of our history, if we're not well educated in our own history, because there's so many other things to take our attention and
Yes.
distract us, does that make us more prone to making the same mistakes again?
Well, certainly, yes, as we forget history, we're more likely to repeat it. I don't know that we're doomed to repeat it, but I think we're certainly more likely to accidentally do the same thing again, just because human nature,
Yes.
right? I mean, sometimes I don't even try to remember how to do something just because I know that if I ever try to figure it out again, I would probably just do it the same way anyway, because that's who I am, right?
Right.
So I think that's kind of like how it is we humans, we tend to do certain things and until we go for like eugenics or something and kind of remove certain segments of the population, uh, right?
Well, but to
Like
some degree, we're
sociopathy.
playing with those ideas again,
Yes.
right?
If we decide, okay, we're going to start reading out sociopathy, things could really change, right? But unless we go that route, like we're just going to tend to have sociopaths, and then the people who aren't sociopaths will be more apathetic, and then I don't know, it's just going to be the same thing over and over and over, right?
We are a
And that's
product of
just,
our humanity.
yes, yes. So that's just human nature. So I don't know if we'll ever move beyond that. And so as we do forget about it, then I think, yes, we tend to fall into those patterns. Um, but media, I think, is the current little side topic here is there's different types of media, right? So there's well, the History Channel used to be like something that was about history, right? As an example, like we
Right.
have different types of media. Not everything is equal. Some of it's just purely entertainment, and some of it is informative, and some
Right.
of it is instructional. And so it depends on what you're
Let
consuming, right?
Let's
Try
talk
to,
about the History Channel, though. You brought up a really
yeah,
good point that the
yeah,
History Channel used to be about history, and there's a
yeah,
reason it's not now.
yeah, yeah.
What is
Because
that reason?
money, history doesn't sell,
Right.
but pro
Right.
wrestling or whatever,
Right.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So
And it's all about what sells more than anything.
we're
And
kind of self-dumbing down as a result of the pursuit of profit, right? Like
right.
we've elevated this lower instinct, which is just hoard things, right? We've elevated that lower instinct to like the highest possible social status that you can achieve, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, our core values are really, really messed up. We have to, I don't know, maybe we all need to start doing psychedelics and feel one with the universe or something because our current path is not doing it, right? It was
Right.
just we think consumerism is a wonderful thing. In the United States, inflation until very recently was always viewed as a positive thing, which has always blown my mind because your money, when you get it in the form of your paycheck, is worth less than when you actually worked for it, right? It's
Yeah.
theft
Well,
right
it's only a
across the board.
positive things for the people at the top that are taking that interest rate, that
Yes,
increased interest rate, right? It means
exactly.
the banks make more money.
Yes, it's theft. It's just
It
theft.
is. It is.
Inflation is nothing other than theft. And so I was very happy that here in Japan there was almost no inflation for a very long time, and Abenomics seemed to kind of crash and burn. But now it's kind of coming back to haunt us as inflation is hitting Japan a bit right now, and pay is not always rising at the same
With
rate.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
and so this is just another way of those at the top taking from those at the bottom. I
Yeah.
mean, it's obvious, but nobody
Which
likes
is
to
very
hear it.
much linked to the corruption that we started this conversation with.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and if we do support corruption at the corporate level, we can't be surprised if there's great deals of corruption once corporations are really in charge of the government itself,
Yes, yes.
which
They're
is
so
largely the
powerful now.
case.
Yeah,
Yeah. And Donald Trump loves other rich people, and he
yeah,
caters to other rich people as well as enriching himself.
right.
I keep hoping that the have-nots will educate at there, and it's possible to educate yourself now. I mean, there's enough
Yes.
information out there.
Oh,
You
yes.
can educate yourself. I'm
Yes,
hoping those with
definitely.
less will educate themselves to the point they recognize that they've given their power away, that they
Hmm.
still have the numbers behind
Hmm.
them in just the
Yeah,
amount of people who can say, no, this is
yeah.
not okay. This is not acceptable,
I was thinking
and
about
make the change.
how to make people want to love learning because I have a daughter who I'm trying to help learn to love learning, and
Right.
um and the other day it just kind of occurred to me. I guess I keep it in the back of my mind and I always kind of think on it here and there, but it kind of occurred to me that like if we have some experience wherein we realize that learning something new has had a positive impact on our lives, we might be more inclined to want to learn more new things,
Yeah.
right? And so the education system, I think, definitely needs to improve upon this, right?
I
Make
agree.
the process of learning something new something that is a personal realization, right? What's the
Yes.
proper pedagogy for this? I can't tell you right now. I mean, the thought just occurred to
Well,
me, but
it doesn't exist in public schools currently that
yeah,
we have. And that's a reason
yeah,
I no longer teach in public schools because I
yeah,
did for many years.
Yeah.
But the system does need to change. And
Yeah.
perhaps it's going to require a big pain point for all of these things to occur. It's
Well,
going to,
the disassembling of the Department of Education is a pretty good pain point and a great way to kind of restart, right? Now that
yes,
it's all
yes,
been cut and slashed and burned, it's time to maybe get
yes.
some fresh perspectives.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and it's always this huge dichotomy to me that the people who are caused the most harm when these things collapse are the people who
Yeah.
have the least,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
they
they're taking away
really
school
are.
lunches and stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah.
this is
It's just unbelievable.
Jesus was
Uh
all like feed the poor.
right. Suffer the little
Oh,
children to come unto me,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Boy.
um exactly.
Oh,
And
it's no
so
Christian nation.
no, and we've I think we may have had this discussion before that the
Oh,
best
yes. Oh,
way
we'll
to
beat that
help
horse till
children
it's
learn,
way, way past dead.
right. Well, the best way to help children to learn is to make sure they have food in their stomachs. They
Yes,
cannot
yes,
learn if they're
yes.
hungry.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. If your
and
brain's not
that's
working, you're not
true
going to
of
remember
all
anything.
children. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So we definitely are continuing to head in a very challenging direction.
Yeah.
The criminality of it is just
Yeah. It's
making my hair catch on fire.
yeah,
Um,
it's quite something.
it really
An
is.
absolute ignoring of all laws.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
wow.
Um,
And they
and
all
of
need to be held
course,
responsible for this,
they
really.
all need to be held responsible. But until the people themselves wake up and say enough is enough, I don't
Yep.
think it's going to get better. It will continue to get worse.
Yeah,
And
probably so.
as long as people are voting against their own interest, meaning their
Yeah.
own welfare. I don't just
Yeah.
mean, the value of the dollar in their pocket, but their
Right.
actual welfare.
Right. Health
Um,
and
right,
just happiness
right,
and
right.
ability
Then,
to rest.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're going to continue to experience more pain points.
Yeah.
But all right, brother. Yet again, no complete answers because these are all complex problems.
Yeah.
But thank you again for a
We'll
really
keep at it. We'll
interesting
try.
discussion. Yeah. All right. Till next time.
Yeah. See ya.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.